Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, College Planning 101, How to Prepare, Pay, and Stay in College. I'm Robin Lind, COPFCU Student Branch Coordinator, and I'll be today's moderator. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. To expand or collapse your control panel, click the orange arrow button. You're listening in with your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. We have a few handouts for today's webinar, as well as a PDF of the slides. To access the handouts, click the handout arrow. To eliminate background noise, all attendees are on mute for today's webinar. To ask questions during the meeting, please click the questions arrow and type your question in the panel box. You can send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and I'll be monitoring those through the webinar. Now I'm going to turn the webinar over to our presenter, Denise Burmeister. Denise is the Director of Strategic Partnerships for CU Student Choice, our student education and lending partner. Go ahead, Denise.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be with you today. Student Choice is a partner with your credit union for their student loan program, and I'm really excited to share with you some information about paying for college, planning ahead, and then really being prepared to go for the full 4 or 5 years that it might take. So I appreciate you spending an hour with me to learn more. And we will make sure that you have access to this presentation afterwards. And then, as Robin mentioned, she'll be monitoring the chat, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions at the conclusion of the presentation. So thank you again for joining. You know, we hear a lot about college costs and wonder, is this still worth it? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. You can see here several reasons that college is important, one of the biggest being income. So we know college graduates on an average earn a little over $1,400 a week versus their counterparts who don't go on and pursue that bachelor's degree. Additionally, those people who have that college bachelor's degree will spend less time on unemployment, so they're less likely to become unemployed, and if they do become unemployed, they're actually able to get back into the workforce a little faster. So yes, it is a big ticket item, but it's certainly still worth it. The CFPB actually estimates that a college graduate is going to earn $1 million more over their career than counterparts who don't go on and get that bachelor's degree. So a significant investment, but significant reward as well. Reasons to start preparing early. The earlier you start preparing, the more information you'll have to make good decisions. We've listed here for you some of the things you can start doing even before high school, and then as you progress through high school. Early on, you really want to start thinking about what college curriculums might be of interest to you based on the career that you want. Also, it's a good time to really start thinking about your high school curriculum and how that's going to prepare you for doing college level work. So you want to, as you move into your junior year, think about, scholarship opportunities, attending events like this one, and as many as you have access to, I would encourage you to attend because what you'll find is each speaker will focus in on different items that will be of importance to them, and then you'll glean information from all of these different speakers to really get a well-rounded approach to college planning and financing. If you're able to, do those college visits, really get to see what life is like on campus. And then your senior year will go into more detail about this, completing your FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, as well as, the application process for the college that you might be attending. Wanted to spend just a second here to talk about navigating this process during the pandemic. Seniors, we're really excited to hear that many college visits are now again being held. Your admitted student days are being reestablished. You can actually be on campus following guidelines that the university might set, but really having that on-campus opportunity. Realize too that sometimes gives you some more flexibility. So colleges have been pushing out deadlines that they usually have a little earlier in the year, and that can include a deposit deadline. So it does, in some cases, have a little benefit for you. We will definitely see impacts of the pandemic going into the next academic year. You know, you might be in a classroom that's much larger so that people can socially distance. Some colleges have announced that vaccination will be a requirement. Other colleges are leaving it as optional. So you want to find out that university that you'll be attending, what their particular requirements are, so that you can be sure and have that vaccination done if it is going to be a requirement. But we're definitely seeing for fall 2021 what looks much more like the traditional college experience, with move-in day and students spending their time living on campus and attending in-person classes, which I think is great. Scholarships. This is where we're going to start, because this is really a very rewarding area to focus your time and attention. So scholarships are free money that you're not going to have to repay at any point. This can be based on a variety of reasons. It could be on financial need within your household, or it could be merit. And there are a wide array of amounts that can be awarded. You might find a scholarship that pays $250 a year up to $25,000 a year. So you really want to hone in on what scholarships might be available to you, and then start looking for those and applying. Some scholarships will allow you to apply as early as the junior year, and then they'll hold those funds in reserve for you until you're at college. Most, though, are going to start being available for application during your senior year. I've listed for you here some resources. These are some of the really big ones throughout the nation, where you can, in some cases, set up a profile about yourself as a student that says, you know, what your intended major is, where your hobbies are, what your intended major is, and then they will help you identify scholarships that meet some of that criteria that you've said to these search engines that reflect, you know, what you're going to be doing in college. Scholly is actually an app, so you can download that onto a mobile device and use it right from your phone. So do take advantage of these big national scholarship resource pages. And then also you want to really focus in on what are some of the more local scholarships that I might be eligible to apply for. The credit union has very graciously put in information here about candidates that are COP graduates that have been to an accredited high school and they're going to an accredited college or university. It's $1,000 a year for 4 consecutive years. So it's really $4,000, you know, if that student remains in good standing. And that's the type of scholarship you definitely want to receive, ones that are renewable or that you can get for consecutive years. So make sure and take note of application deadline, and make sure that you apply for that when the scholarship is being made available. One thing I will say too about scholarships is that these local ones, like your credit union is offering, you also want to hone in with your local guidance counselor at the college, or excuse me, at the high school you're attending, because they frequently will have information on local scholarships that students from your high school have received in the past. So, you know, you want to make sure you're utilizing those big national engines, but you also want to focus in on what local scholarships might be available to you. And your high school guidance counselor is oftentimes a really good resource for that information, that they know other students have received scholarship dollars from some of those local Lions Club, Rotary Club. It could be that the employer where your parent works offers a scholarship for students, of those employees, sons or daughters. So, really turn over every leaf. You want to make sure as you're looking for scholarships that you follow all of the instructions. Make sure that you're highlighting your community involvement, any charity work. If you have a part-time job, definitely include that, because they know that you're managing not only your high school curriculum, but that part-time job, and then whatever else you're doing outside of school and work. So that's a great reflection on your ability to manage your time. Reference letters can be a really helpful way to get yourself in contention for some of those scholarships. And make sure they really talk about you as a well-rounded student. So most scholarship applications, you're going to disclose your GPA. You might have to provide an ACT or SAT score. So these reference letters are a great way to talk about who you are as a person and what makes you different from other candidates they might be looking at. So those reference letters could be from people who aren't necessarily in the academic arena. It could be your coach, who could talk about how you're a great team player, that you encourage other people. So those aspects that might not be, on a black and white, data point that is otherwise listed on that scholarship application. And sadly, just a word of caution to please be aware of scams. Unfortunately, there are a lot of scholarship scams where you're told, hey, send us $99 and we will guarantee to find you 5 scholarships. And you pay the $99 and then you literally get a page printed of a Google search of 5 scholarships that you could have Googled yourself and found. So if you're asked to pay for a scholarship or in any way provide information, financial information, it's definitely a scam. So please do realize scholarships are free money. So if you're being asked to pay, that's a big red flag that you should move on and look for some other resources to get those scholarships. 5 mistakes that we know are commonly made in looking for scholarships, only applying for private scholarships. We'll talk about this a little bit when we look at school selection, but you want to make sure that the school you're attending, you're going to check out their financial aid webpage to make sure you're aware of any school-based scholarships that might be available to you. Applying for too few scholarships. This isn't necessarily as you're going into your freshman year, but as you continue to go through college, realize there are going to be scholarships that are only available to students who are junior or senior level in college. So that will open up a whole new wealth of scholarships that you can apply for once you're an upperclassman pursuing your degree. So do keep that search going, not only as you head into freshman year, but throughout your sophomore, junior, and senior year. It's also important to really follow all the fine print for those applications. If the instructions say it must be in 12-point font, make sure you're using a 12-point font. What scholarship committees will sometimes do is, they know they're going to get a lot of applications, and if you don't follow those instructions, they immediately just remove that student from consideration. So they don't even look at the content within the application because they can immediately identify that something in the instruction packet was not followed. So do, follow, to the very fine print, all of the instructions. And then, of course, you want to make sure you get your application in before the deadline. So if it's due by 11:59 p.m. on April 21st, make sure it is postmarked or time-stamped in time ahead of that deadline. And if you can, try and be early. The real, effort you're putting out, you don't want to have your application not considered just because it arrived 1 minute after the deadline. And then continue to be persistent. So, it's that old saying, the more spaghetti you throw, something's going to stick. So keep sending out those applications. You could have a basic template for your scholarship applications done, or any essays that you're required, and then you can just tweak it to fit the specifics of that particular scholarship. So keep being persistent in applying for as many scholarships as you possibly can. And don't discount those smaller scholarships that I mentioned. It might be a $250 scholarship, but hey, if you get 3 or 4 of those, you're then in the thousands if you get 4. So, keep looking for those scholarship opportunities and really think of it as your part-time job. So if you were to spend 50 hours searching for a scholarship and you get one $1,000 scholarship, you made 20 bucks an hour, which you didn't have to pay taxes on. You could have done it from your couch in your pajamas. So really think of it as a job and put the time and energy and effort into it to get as much scholarship money as you can, because you'll see when we look at having to take out a loan, it's not just that loan amount, but it's all the interest that is going to accrue with it. So the more money that you can get that you don't have to pay back or pay interest on, even better. All right, so lots of information about scholarships. Now let's switch gears a little bit and look at choosing a college that might be the right fit for this student. Choosing a college, these are some of the things that you want to make sure that you're checking out about that university. So some universities you're going to have a great comfort level with because you've grown up knowing them, you know that they are accredited, that they have a great reputation. When you're considering colleges that you might not be as familiar with, maybe you've gotten a really cool admissions packet from a school that's in Louisiana that you have really no information on, you want to be sure and check out all of these data elements that I've listed here, because you want to have a school that's really looking at, are our students graduating? When they start as a freshman, how many of them make it to senior year and actually walk and get that degree? So this is information you want to make sure and know about any college that you're considering. And the feds have made it really easy for you to find this information via the College Navigator. So this is a site, it's managed by the U.S. National Center for Education Statistics, and really any college in the U.S. that you're thinking of, you can find right here on the College Navigator. So the web address is here for you, so you can refer back to this when you're ready to do some research, and you can really do some side-by-side comparisons. So you might have 2 or 3 colleges that are, top of your list, and you can use the College Navigator to really help compare, what's different or what's unique about the colleges that I'm considering. And all of those data elements that we just looked at here are provided for you on the College Navigator. So I kind of did a little sample for you here. This is from the University of Cincinnati. And then this is the estimated expense for attending University of Cincinnati. So you can see here, it gives you not only tuition and fees, but it breaks it out whether you're in-state, out-of-state, books and supplies, and then living arrangements. It comes as a real shock to a lot of students and families that what you're paying in tuition, you're almost paying as much just for room and board. So really important to think about not just the tuition and fee costs, but what is it going to cost me to live on campus? And, if I don't live on campus, how much could I potentially save if I did that? The great thing about the Navigator as well is it does give you 4 years worth of data. So you can look to see how it's trending. So you can see they've had a very marginal increase in in-state tuition and fees, the same for on-campus housing. So this helps you know that, hey, I'm not going to have sticker shock the second year that I'm at the school, that my tuition and fees are going to go up by 20%. So it's a reassurance that you can see how they're trending year to year. All right, so you know how much it costs, but what might I expect in financial aid from that same university. So this is also provided for you on the College Navigator. And you can see that, of the students receiving aid, almost 4,000, 3,200 of them received some type of scholarship, grant, or other free money that they did not have to repay. So that's really helpful to know. And then remember when we talked about not only applying for private scholarships, but making sure you take advantage of other free monies. This is what I'm talking about, this institutional grant or scholarships. This means this is money that the university has that they are awarding. And you can see over half of students attending University of Cincinnati got some sort of grant or scholarship from the university. So you want to check out that university financial aid site to find out, what is the deadline? What is the process? How do I make sure that I'm one of these 56% of people getting some of this money? Because you can see here, it's over $15 million that they're making available. So you want to make sure that you're in contention for those funds. So College Navigator can really be helpful in just understanding the university, what it's going to cost you, and then what typically students are receiving in terms of financial aid. So really insightful and helpful. And as I said, you can look at multiple universities and then really compare what might work best for you as the student and the family. All right, so you're starting your initial research. You really have it, fine-tuned, your top colleges. What's that application process going to look like? Some real keys here for you for the college application process. This is what college admissions counselors tell us they're looking for. The first one being course strength. So how rigorous was that high school curriculum? Were the courses taken really preparing that student for college level coursework? Second is overall GPA. And we hear from admissions counselors all the time that they'd much rather see a student that has a slightly lower GPA that took the more rigorous courses than someone with a super high GPA, but they really took a lot of easy courses because they're not necessarily as prepared for college level coursework. They're also looking to see, what your test scores may be. Many schools are making that optional for this year. We do anticipate those coming back, SAT, ACT, in subsequent years. So, that weighs in heavily. They're also looking at your demonstrated interest, those extracurricular activities that you're doing. How does that relate to your intended major or what you're going to be studying and, move forward career-wise with? So if you can have those extracurricular or volunteer activities kind of integrate with what your career and college goals are, even better. Also, your essay is a great way to differentiate yourself here. And then those teacher and counselor recommendations. So, multi-purpose, those recommendations could be used not only for your admissions essay or your admissions process, but also for those scholarships that you're going to want to really put the effort in to receive. So realize these are the top 7 things that college admissions offices are looking for. Some important things to know about this. Be honest about everything. Don't, hide anything. You just certainly want to, be fully honest and, explain, hey, my freshman year, this is something that happened, but this is what I'm doing differently now, or this is how I made changes to really, turn that around. Don't, be dishonest about your intended major, thinking, oh, well, if I'm this major, I might get admitted more easily if I say I'm this other major. And then, students, be sure you write your own essay. Parents, do not write the student essay. We often hear from admissions counselors that they get a vibe that, hey, mom or dad actually wrote this. Also know that most admissions offices, if you submit an essay, are going to run it through Turnitin, or other services that are going to look for plagiarism or content that, isn't original. So just be honest about everything. Once you do accept admission from a college, if you were, considering other colleges, it's really the thing to do is to let them know, hey, I've made a decision, I'm going to another university, so you can take me off of your potential student list. And that's really helpful because I might be on the wait list for that college, and I'm going to be super excited when you notify them that you're not going to be attending, because then that allows them to offer admission to me. So once you do accept, if you've been in discussions with other colleges, please do let them know, because that does open up opportunities for other people. All right, so we've scholarship search, we've really narrowed down our college that we want to attend. We're doing some initial research on what that's going to cost us. So let's look at cost of education. So this is information from the College Board. They are the group that manages the SAT. So you're probably familiar with them. They look at average costs across the U.S. You can see here for a 4-year in-state school, the average cost is just under $26,000 a year. For a private 4-year school, average cost in the U.S. is a little over $52,000 per year. So it is a big ticket item, regardless of the school type that you select, it's a big financial investment. The one thing I would say about this is that, if you see that price tag of over $50,000 a year, my initial thought would be, hey, I'm not even going to consider those universities because they're so expensive. But what you want to understand is, yes, they may have a higher upfront cost, but they oftentimes will have institutional money or other resources that they can use to help defray that cost. So it could be, if your dream school is a 4-year private, definitely apply. Do not let that upfront cost deter you, because what you'll sometimes find is that, yes, it looks more expensive in the beginning, but when you receive your award from financial aid, it could be, very similar to the cost that you might pay for an in-state school who might not have as much institutional money that they can award. So don't let sticker price sway your decision. Make sure you really look at those colleges that are of interest to you, that have majors, that fit in with your future career goals. Apply to those and just compare what they're able to offer you in financial aid, because that is, what is most important. How are they going to help you pay for that full sticker price? All right, so what does this path look like? You're going to apply for, admission. You'll get your acceptance. Be sure to visit the financial aid website, the office. If they offer a virtual session with a counselor, that's even better. You're going to determine how much it's going to cost to attend that school. You'll complete your FAFSA, and we'll go into more detail about the FAFSA. But from that FAFSA, you can send your results to up to 10 colleges and universities that you might be considering. So what happens when you complete your FAFSA, there's a record sent to you as the student, letting you know your information. They're also sending an information record to those colleges that you said you had interest in. And that's what those colleges will use to build an award letter for you, to let you know what they could potentially offer you in financial aid. All right, so the first step is making sure you do the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. Many high schools will have information on the FAFSA as well. I've given you here the web address to go in and complete the FAFSA. This is super important. Make sure you're on the .gov site. Just like there are lots of scholarship searches, unfortunately, there are a lot of scholarship scams. There are a lot of FAFSA scams as well. So if you're being asked to pay to complete the FAFSA, that's a red flag. You know that that's not legitimate. Also, if you're on a site that's not .gov, if you're on .org, .edu, You very well could be having your personal information stolen as you're typing it in. So do make sure you're on the official FAFSA website. The FAFSA is really a straightforward process. It's designed to take, a 20-minute time frame to complete from the time you start it until you finish. It opens October 1st. So if you're a senior in high school, you can start that FAFSA the October 1st of your senior year. If you're a junior, mark down October 1st, because next October 1st, you're going to be doing the FAFSA. Definitely do it online unless you have some serious hindrance to doing it online. The mail will certainly slow down the process for you. You will complete the FAFSA annually. And parents who may have more than one student in college, you will do a separate FAFSA for each student that you have in college. The other thing to remember for the FAFSA is that you will have a special PIN number that you're going to use when you complete that process. So you can get your PIN at the same time you're doing the FAFSA, or you can even request that in advance. It usually takes just a matter of seconds to get that. But if you do want to prepare in advance, you can. For those people who are joining the webinar who have, a sophomore or a junior in college right now, you can actually do an estimator. So you won't be filling out the official FAFSA, but there is an estimator that you could use that would show you sort of the data elements that they're looking for and what that process might be like. But really, it's very straightforward. There is also the option to pull in your tax return information so that you don't have to enter all of the information for the FAFSA itself. The FAFSA will actually go out, retrieve your information from the IRS, and then import it into the FAFSA for you. They've tried to make it as seamless and easy as possible. But remember, October 1st is your key date to get that started. So what to expect from the FAFSA process? Once you send that information out to the universities you're interested in attending, that's when you're going to start receiving those award letters and offers that you can then put side by side and make comparisons with those. What might you find on those financial aid award letters? These are the most common. And we'll actually go into detail for some of these, but you definitely want to look for those scholarships and grants, work study, loan programs, as well as any institutional programs. So let's dig in a little deeper to some of the types of aid that you might see on an award letter. All right, so here's a sample. So congratulations, University of Success was your absolute first choice for admission, and you can see here you're receiving a subsidized loan, an unsubsidized loan, a grant, a state scholarship, and work study. You have a total award of $10,000. However, in order to attend University of Success, they're estimating the cost to attend is $10,000. So that means you've got $10,000 that you need to figure out how you're going to pay that. So let's take a look, really look at what of that $10,000 is fixed. So there's some things that you're not going to be able to change. So the tuition rate is the tuition rate, and everybody pays that, no matter what. But there are going to be some costs that could be flexible. So like room and board. Maybe initially you thought, I'm going to have a single room, I'm going to be by myself, I don't want to have to share my room. But when you see the cost of it, you do have some flexibility. You could opt to live with a roommate and save a significant amount of money. So instead of, $10,000, by going to a room with another person, you save yourself $2,000. So think about what those flexible costs are. Appeals, we'll talk about reasons you might appeal your award. Maybe other income. Possibly you're going to decide to work a part-time job so that you can help pay towards your costs, and that's money that you don't have to take out in a loan. And tuition payment plans. Tuition payment plans are great. We'll go into more detail for that, but really think about, of that $10,000, what do I have to pay and what do I have some flexibility for? So here are some examples. So, maybe instead of living on campus, you decide to live at home. That means $4,000 of that $10,000 that you don't have to pay. Food, maybe instead of getting the gold meal plan, you decide to go with bronze, and you're going to pack your own lunch every day, but that's going to save you $1,500. Books, the cost here can sometimes be defrayed if you're looking at doing a digital book instead of a physical textbook. You can look at options like Chegg, or maybe you can order a book online instead of paying, full price at the bookstore. And then your personal expenses and transportation, those are pretty low. So you're feeling like, hey, I've really budgeted as tightly as I can in those areas. But just making some of these changes, you could save yourself $5,500 of that $10,000. And maybe you can't live at home with parents because the school is too far away. But maybe instead of that more expensive option, you go with a more affordable one. So just really know that you can control some of these expenses, and anything that you can save while you're in school is money that you don't have to pay after school, which is a very good thing. I mentioned that there could be reasons that you could appeal your award. So that award is going to be based on the information that you submitted from your FAFSA. And maybe since the tax return was filed that was used for that FAFSA, maybe there's been a change of employment. During the pandemic, maybe somebody, in the household lost a job, and so that income is no longer true. Maybe you've had significant medical bills. These are reasons that you could appeal your award letter with the financial aid office. If you do need to do an appeal, do so as early as possible. Oftentimes the appeal process is manual. So that means there's a person who is going to get your file. They're going to say, hey, they've appealed based on medical bills. They're then going to come to you and request copies of those medical bills. Or, if you did lose a job, maybe they're going to want to see information about, what your new income level is. But it's oftentimes a very manual process. So you don't want to leave this to the last minute. If you know you're going to need to have an appeal, go out to the financial aid office at that university and find out what that process is. Do I submit this documentation online, or do I make an appointment and go see a counselor, because you want to make sure you get started on the process as quickly as possible. All right, so taking this value-based approach, we're going to first definitely get all of that free money that you possibly can. You're then going to look to what's the cheapest loan that I can get if I don't have, grants, scholarships, tuition discounting to help pay. And then finally, once you've utilized the free and cheap, what other gap resources might I have? So, some families might have put money aside in a 529 plan. Some might look at using home equity. Again, tuition payment plans might be an option. The two that most families are going to consider are either going to be a Federal Plus loan or a private student loan. So we'll look at all of these a little more closely. All right, so grants and scholarships, this is the free money based on need or merit. Doesn't have to be repaid. You want as much of this as you could possibly get. Just like the COPFCU scholarship, find out, is it renewable? So that scholarship the freshman year, find out, as long as I maintain my grade point average or meet whatever criteria, are you going to automatically renew this? Or is this a one-time scholarship? But make sure you take advantage of all the scholarships and grants you can. And then also be aware that these are the big federal grants that you might see on an award letter. So the federal Pell Grant, you can see the amount here. for the time period indicated. This is based on financial need in the household. So when you completed that FAFSA, the lower the income level, the higher grant money you might receive. Iraq and Afghanistan service grant. This one I actually hope nobody gets. This is a nice sizable award. However, to qualify for this, you have to have a parent that was killed serving in Iraq or Afghanistan. The Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. This is again a needs-based program. So when you complete the FAFSA, the more financial need there is in the household, the higher this award would be. And then lastly, the TEACH grant. So this is for education majors. And these education majors are going to need to commit to serving in an underserved school for a certain period of time, typically 4 years. And so this could be a low-income school, or it could be a school in a remote area where they have a more challenging time recruiting teachers. If you fulfill the requirement and teach for 4 years, then it was a grant. If, however, you do not meet that criteria and you don't serve the 4 years, then that grant is converted to a loan and then has to be repaid. So the financial aid office will obviously disclose that to you, but just be aware this is one grant that could potentially turn into a loan if you don't meet the criteria once you've graduated. Work study. This is a wonderful opportunity to work on campus. It is made available to students with the greatest financial need first. There's a limited number of jobs on campus. You can check with your financial aid office if you see this awarded to you, about how to apply and get selected for a position. If you're offered federal work study, it does pay at least minimum wage, and it's a job on campus, and it's oftentimes within the department of the university. So it's a great way to get to know professors, do some networking. If you can work within, the college of your major, even better, because that's an opportunity to really get to know those people who can help you at graduation time find future employment. Also, it's way more flexible typically than a job off campus, because they know your schedule is going to change from semester to semester. So they're flexible with, hey, I realize now you have a biology lab every Tuesday from 2 to 4. So you don't have to come for your work study during that time. You can come a different time during the week. So it does provide a lot of flexibility. So a good opportunity if you're awarded federal work study. Tuition payment plans, I've mentioned those. This is a way to pay for school throughout the academic year. I affectionately and lovingly call this, college on layaway, because you do make monthly installments directly to the university. This is sometimes handled through the bursar's office or the billing office. You won't necessarily do this with financial aid, but you can certainly ask them and they'll point you in the right direction. It is offered by most schools. There's typically an administrative fee that's somewhere between $50 and $100, but you can make 10 monthly payments throughout the school year, interest-free. So that's what's beautiful about it. So in our scenario, when we owed $10,000, you could make 10 monthly installments of $1,000 interest-free, which would be great. If you say, though, hey, Denise, there's no way I can swing $1,000 a month, the most I could do is $300. That's okay. Sign up for $300 a month, and then that's $3,000 that you don't have to pay interest on. You don't have to sign up for the full amount that's due. Sign up for what your monthly budget will allow, and that's interest-free money that you can get to help pay for college throughout the academic year. Next, all of that free resource money, the low-cost tuition payment plan, Now let's look at low-cost loans, or the cheap loans. That's the federal direct loan. This is made directly by the federal government to the student. The student does need to be at least half-time, degree-seeking. They have to maintain satisfactory academic progress, meaning that they can't be failing too many classes or withdrawing from too many classes. If you're a male, you must be registered for selective service, but you can see the criteria here. And this loan is made in the student's name if there is financial need in the household as determined when that student filled out the FAFSA. It very well could be that the government will pay the interest on some of that loan for the student while they're in school and for 6 months after they leave school. So it could be that you have an interest subsidy for this direct student loan. You can see here it's a fixed interest rate of 2.75%. That's the rate until July 1st. Announce one, so be aware this could change at the end of the summer or midsummer. And there's also a very small origination fee of just over 1%. But if you think about it, a high school student who may or may not have ever had a job, they probably won't have a job in college, they don't have any assets to pledge, to get a fixed rate at 2.75% is really a great deal. So we definitely encourage students to take that. And if you can get the subsidy, even better. The downside to the direct loan for students is that it is a limited dollar amount. So if you have $10,000 that you're looking to come up with, you know, the most a freshman can receive is $5,500. If there's need in the household when that FAFSA is completed, the subsidy of interest that the feds will pay is interest on $3,500 of the $5,500 loan. You don't get both of these amounts. You get a maximum of $5,500, and if there's financial need, the government will pay the interest on up to $3,500 of that. You can see the increased amounts, you know, by academic year. It goes up slightly. If for some reason that student is considered independent, they do have additional borrowing capacity available to them. Here is the criteria that would make a student independent. You know, 24, married, graduate professional. So most students are not going to meet this independent student criteria. If they're going right from high school onto college, they're going to be that dependent student status and would only be able to borrow this dependent student dollar amount. So it's a great loan. It just unfortunately doesn't go a long way when you consider how much the cost of attendance is. So we've used, you know, all of our scholarship money, our grant money. We've signed up for what we can afford tuition payment plan wise. We still have money that needs to be paid. What can we use to fill in that gap? And so let's talk a little bit about the gap loan options. We mentioned here some of the things that families, you know, might utilize: 529, home equity. We really discourage using any retirement accounts. You know, for the most part, you can borrow to go to college, but can't really borrow to retire. So we would encourage you not to use retirement accounts. And then there are certainly some loan options that can be considered. The federal option is the Direct Plus loan. This is the parent loan. This is a government-administered credit-based loan. It's made available to a biological, adoptive, sometimes a step-parent. This loan is made in that parent's name, so the student is not on it. They're not responsible for the repayment of it. The parent can borrow up to the full cost of attendance. This year, until July 1, the interest rate is fixed at 5.3%. They get 10 years to pay it back. You can start repayment immediately, or you can defer while that student is in school. The downside to the Plus loan is this whopper of an origination fee. You can see it's 4.228%. So if I were getting that $10,000 plus loan to pay for my gap, I would pay $422.80 just to get the loan. So it does have a pretty hefty origination fee. So that's the federal option. Families will then also look at, what about a private student loan? So private student loans, this is general marketplace information. You shouldn't use a private student loan to replace the student direct loan, but you certainly consider it to replace the PLUS loan. How it's different from the federal option is that it's really available to the student and the co-borrower in partnership. So the student's name is going to be on a private student loan, and they're going to have a credit-worthy co-borrower 90+% of the time, that's mom or dad, to help them qualify. The nice thing with a private student loan is it typically has little or no origination fee, and it defers or extends repayment out up to even 25 years. So if you need a smaller monthly payment to make the loan more affordable, a private loan is a good option. The other thing is with private student loans, it's really a truly underwritten loan. So the better your credit, the higher your FICO, you're likely to get really great pricing on a private student loan versus, regardless of, how good your credit score is with the PLUS loan, you get the 5.3 and the origination fee. So this is general marketplace information. Specifically, your COPFCU solution is unique. It's really different. While you have to do the FAFSA each and every year, and you're going to have to apply for those federal loans each and every year, with the credit union, you can actually open a line of credit that's available for up to 60 months. So the student can go to school for even 5 years. You apply once when they start their college career. They can get up to $75,000, and then you only draw against it for what you need. So you only are going to be utilizing that line when you need it. So your freshman year, maybe you do tuition payment plan, you only need $4,000. You draw $4,000 from that line, and that's all you're paying interest on. When the sophomore year starts, that year you need $6,000, so you draw down $6,000. So you only use it as needed. The listing of eligible schools is very comprehensive, and then their rates start as low as 3.75% and zero origination fee. So it's a really good option, especially for people with great credit. So you can see here, no origination, no prepayment fees either. So this is great because depending on how much you owe, once you go into repayment, if you owe $40,000 or more, you get a 25-year repayment term. If you owe less than $40,000, you get 20 years. But you can pay it off sooner at any time with no penalty. So the beautiful thing is you get that lower monthly payment. You can always pay it off early and not be penalized for that. Even better, you can reduce the interest rate you receive by another 0.25% by having your payments automatically deducted. And you can fully defer it, meaning you don't have to make any payments on it while the student is in school or for 6 months after they leave school. If you want to, you can make interest-only payments, or you can go into full repayment, just whatever works best with your budget. One of the wonderful things about this is that there is a co-borrower release. Because this is a partnership between the student and their co-borrower, once that student has been in repayment, they've graduated, been in repayment for at least 4 years, they, as the student, can then apply to have the co-borrower released. So we will run the credit of the student at that time as long as they meet that same underwriting criteria that was used when the line was originated. Then the co-borrower's name is taken off, woohoo, and it then becomes 100% responsibility of the student to repay. So a really great option for, parents or co-borrowers that want to help the student get through college, help them successfully get into repayment, but then have plans to retire or, buy a condo somewhere, all those good things. So Lastly, your credit union does offer a graduated repayment plan. So that means that student finishes college, yay, they get their first job, yay, but they see their starting salary and it's not as exciting as they had hoped. That student can actually get a reduced payment amount for the first 2 years they're in repayment. It's actually based on a 40-year repayment schedule, but it helps them to either, find another job or get a couple pay increases, and then they make up for that, lower payment from the first 2 years for the remainder of the repayment term. But a really great option to help students, right after school. Information on the COPFCU program is available right at this URL. If you were to go to the credit union site and then go, loans, student loans, you would come here. You can find, all of the approved schools, the rates that are being offered, frequently asked questions, great helpful information there. Or you can call us 24/7 and speak to a representative with this toll-free number. I did want to mention to you too, I've given you a ton of information all within this 1 hour. And some of this later on, you might think, gosh, it made sense when we were on the webinar, but I'm not really sure now. We have a college access counselor available. Your credit union makes this available to you, so there's no cost for this at all. You can submit a question online, or even better, you can schedule an appointment with the college access counselor. It's a 30-minute one-on-one phone meeting, and it can be about their line of credit, or it could be about filling out the FAFSA, or how do I do a scholarship search. Anything related to paying for college doesn't have to be about the credit union's line of credit. And you can schedule that appointment at your convenience and have that one-on-one phone meeting with the college access counselor. So do realize that resource is available to you after today as well. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join today's information session and learn more about preparing, paying, and staying in college. And I will let Robin, any questions that possibly came in through the chat. I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks, Denise. That was a lot of really good information. I just want to remind people, if you have any questions, you can submit them through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. And while we're waiting to see if any questions come in, I do want to let you know that this webinar has been recorded. So you should get an email with the recording in a couple hours or so. And you can also access it on our website and all of our other webinars at copfcu.com/webinars. So at this time, Denise, we don't have any questions right now. But again, you can contact Student Choice with your questions, and you can find that information on our website as well. If you go to borrowing and then student loans, we have this information on our website as well. And you can also contact our our loan officers at any time with any questions as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Robin. Thanks everybody that attended. I enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you, Denise, and thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.